The Aurelius Grand Hotel Ballroom glittered like a jewelry box, designed to intimidate as 50 of the city's most stunning socialites swirled across the marble floor, each one determined to become the future Mrs. Leonardo Vance. Bianca Daniels, meanwhile, was on her knees behind a decorative column, scrubbing furiously at a champagne stain someone's stiletto had ground into the Persian rug. She had no trust fund, no society connections, no last name that opened doors. She was a waitress, a girl from the service entrance, destined only to refill glasses and vanish into the background while nervous heiresses competed for the city's most eligible bachelor. 2 more hours, Bianca muttered. Just 2 more hours until this circus ends. She sat back on her heels, blowing a rebellious curl from her face as her gaze traveled unwillingly across the ballroom to where he moved through the crowd. Leonardo Vance, billionaire, philanthropist. The man whose companies ran everything from clean energy to couture, packaged in a devastating smile and perfect tuxedo. His attention glided from one glittering conversation to the next, seemingly genuine, until the moment he moved on. That was Leonardo's way, charming, brilliant, and emotionally unavailable. As if sensing her scrutiny, his gaze suddenly locked onto hers across the crowded room. He smiled, not his polished, camera-ready smile, but something smaller, private. Bianca scowled and looked away, scrubbing harder. She was entirely immune to whatever that look meant. Or, more accurately, entirely committed to appearing immune, which was far more achievable. Tonight wasn't just any charity ball. Whispers said Leonardo's board was finally pressuring him to find a wife, someone to prove he was serious about legacy, not just profit margins. His reputation hasn't stopped 50 women from trying, Bianca thought bitterly. She absolutely did not notice how his laugh made something warm unfurl in her chest. Just like she didn't notice him excusing himself from a senator's daughter and walking directly toward her. Welcome to Life in Stories, where emotions meet imagination. If you love tales that make your heart race, smile, or ache a little, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, join our growing family, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. We love hearing from you. The Aurelius Grand Hotel Ballroom didn't just glitter, it commanded. Crystal chandeliers the size of compact cars hung from gilded ceilings, refracting light across marble floors, polished to mirrors. A live orchestra tucked into an alcove played something classical and expensive-sounding, while 50 of the city's most glamorous socialites circled the room like beautiful predatory birds. And at the center of it all, like a king holding court without needing a throne, stood Leonardo Vance. "Did you hear?" a woman in emerald silk whispered to her companion near the champagne fountain. "He built his first company at 21, turned it into a billion-dollar empire before 30. "I heard tonight's the night," the other replied, adjusting her diamond necklace. "His board finally convinced him. He's here to choose a wife." Bianca Daniels heard all of this from behind a service door, balancing a tray of hors d'oeuvres while the head of catering barked orders like a military general deploying troops. "Table 7 needs refills. Don't let anyone's glass stay empty for more than 30 seconds. And for God's sake, smile. You're part of the ambiance." Bianca's polite smile felt painted on. Her feet already ached in the sensible black flats required by uniform code, and they were only an hour into a 4-hour shift. Around her, the other servers moved with practiced efficiency, weaving through crowds of people who looked through them like they were furniture. "You good?" whispered Marco, a fellow waiter who looked as exhausted as she felt. Bianca nodded, steadying her tray. "Living the dream." "Yeah, well, try not to make eye contact with the blonde in Valentino by the window. She snapped her fingers at me earlier. Actually, snapped them." "Classy," Bianca muttered, then caught Marco's tray as it tilted dangerously. "Careful. You've got 5 glasses of vintage Dom on there." You're a lifesaver." He shot her a grateful smile before disappearing into the glittering chaos. Bianca took a breath and pushed through the service door. The ballroom hit her like a wall of sound and light. Laughter, perfume, the clink of crystal, the rustle of silk and satin and designer labels she couldn't pronounce. She moved along the perimeter, offering canapés to guests who either ignored her entirely or plucked items off her tray without so much as a glance. Invisible, she thought, just the way I like it. She was refilling champagne flutes near the grand staircase when she heard the voice. Sharp, dismissive, dripping with the kind of contempt that came from never having been told no. "Excuse me, waitress." Bianca turned. A blonde woman in a gown that probably cost more than Bianca's car stood there, looking at her like she was a smudge on an otherwise perfect painting. Miss Holbrook. Bianca recognized her from the society pages. Old money, older attitude. "Yes, ma'am," Bianca said, her customer service smile firmly in place. "Try not to spill anything near me," Ms. Holbrook said, loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "That uniform might be washable, but this dress costs more than your annual rent." A few people laughed. Polite, vicious little sounds. Bianca's smile didn't waver. "Wouldn't dream of it, ma'am." She turned to leave, and her foot caught the decorative champagne bucket someone had placed exactly where no one should put a champagne bucket. Time slowed. The tray tilted. 6 glasses of Veuve Clicquot launched into the air like golden missiles, spinning, catching the chandelier light, and then splash. Liquid gold rained down on Miss Holbrook's designer gown. The music stopped. The entire ballroom seemed to inhale as one. Bianca froze, tray still in hand, watching champagne drip from Ms. Holbrook's carefully styled hair onto her probably priceless dress. Horror flooded through her, hot and paralyzing. "Oh my God," Bianca breathed. "I am so sorry. Security!" Ms. Holbrook shrieked, her face turning an alarming shade of crimson. This incompetent, she ruined my dress. I want her fired. I want her." "That's enough." The voice cut through the chaos like a knife through silk, quiet, commanding, and utterly calm. Leonardo Vance had turned from his conversation with what looked like a senator and was walking toward them. The crowd parted automatically. Cameras flashed. Bianca wanted the floor to open up and swallow her whole. Leonardo stopped a few feet away, his dark eyes assessing the scene with the same cool precision he probably used in boardrooms. Then he looked at Ms. Holbrook. Really looked at her, champagne-soaked and furious, and something shifted in his expression. Was that amusement? "Ms. Holbrook, is it?" His voice was perfectly polite. "Yes, Mr. Vance. This waitress just—" "That's a very bold artistic choice," Leonardo interrupted smoothly, gesturing to her dripping gown. "Champagne as a fashion statement, very avant-garde. I applaud your commitment to the medium." Someone in the crowd snorted. Then another laugh. Then a wave of them. Ms. Holbrook's mouth opened and closed like a fish. This wasn't... She spilled..." "Of course she did," Leonardo agreed. "And you wore it beautifully. Though perhaps next time avoid the bottle service runway during an active event." The laughter grew. Ms. Holbrook's face went from red to purple. She spun on her heel and stormed toward the exit, champagne still dripping in her wake. Leonardo turned to Bianca. She was still frozen, mortified, clutching her empty tray like a shield. Her cheeks burned under his gaze, direct, dark, and for some inexplicable reason, warm. "Miss," he prompted. "D. Daniels," she managed. "Bianca Daniels." "Miss Daniels." He said her name like he was testing how it felt. "Are you injured?" "No, sir." Just horrified. That earned her a smile, small, private, nothing like the polished expression he'd been wearing all evening. "Don't be." That was the most entertaining thing that's happened all night. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, a spark, a question, a dare. Bianca couldn't name it, but she felt it in her chest like a pulled thread. Then someone called his name, and the moment broke. Leonardo nodded once, almost imperceptibly, and returned to his table. The orchestra resumed. Conversations picked back up. The world continued spinning. Bianca stood there for 3 more seconds, then bolted for the service entrance. Behind the kitchen doors, she leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath. Her hands were shaking. Her entire body felt like it was vibrating with residual adrenaline and shame. "I'm fired," she thought. "I'm absolutely fired. I just dumped champagne on one of the richest women in the city and—" "Daniels!" The head of staff appeared, red-faced and breathless. "Here it comes," she thought. "The firing, the humiliation, the—" "Mr. Vance specifically requested you serve his table for the rest of the evening." Bianca blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "His table. His personal table. He asked for you by name." The manager looked as confused as she felt. "So for heaven's sake, try not to drop anything else. Fix your hair and get back out there now." He disappeared before she could respond. Bianca stared at her reflection in the polished steel of a serving cart. Her bun had come half undone. Her uniform had champagne spots. She looked exactly like someone who'd just caused a public catastrophe. And Leonardo Vance, billionaire, genius, the man 50 women were competing for tonight, had specifically asked for her. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. After a moment, she fixed her bun, straightened her uniform, and took a deep breath. Then Bianca Daniels pushed through the service door and stepped back into the ballroom, where 100 pairs of eyes immediately locked onto her, and one particular pair, dark, amused, and utterly unreadable, waited at the center table. The night, she realized with sinking certainty, was only just beginning. Bianca had imagined many ways her evening might end: getting fired, getting escorted out by security, maybe even getting a stern lecture about champagne-throwing etiquette. She had not imagined this. Leonardo Vance's table sat on a raised platform at the center of the ballroom, surrounded by the city's elite-like planets orbiting a sun. Models, heiresses, a tech mogul's daughter, 2 actresses Bianca recognized from magazine covers, all impossibly beautiful, impossibly poised, and all staring at her like she'd crashed a wedding in sweatpants. Leonardo stood as she approached, which made everything worse. 50 pairs of eyes tracked her movement across the marble floor. "Miss Daniels," he said smoothly, pulling out the empty chair beside him. "Sit." She froze. "Sir, I'm staff. I should be—" "Then consider it part of your job description tonight." That private smile again, the one that didn't quite reach his eyes but somehow felt more genuine than anything else in the room. "Please." The word was soft, but it wasn't really a request. Bianca sat, spine rigid, gripping her napkin like a lifeline, while whispers erupted around them. Leonardo poured her a glass of wine himself, ignoring the scandalized gasps from a woman in sapphire silk across the table. "So," he said casually, as if they were alone instead of under 100 scrutinizing stares. "Tell me, how does it feel to upstage 50 women without even trying?" She choked on her wine. He handed her another napkin, visibly amused. "I'm pretty sure I just improved your PR," Bianca managed once she could breathe again. "Nothing says man of the people like defending the help." His laugh was quiet, but genuine. "Is that what you think this is? A publicity stunt? Isn't everything?" She met his gaze directly, surprising herself. "You're a billionaire at a ball designed to find you a wife." Every smile is calculated. Every conversation is networking. "I'm just the entertaining anecdote you'll tell at shareholder meetings." Something shifted in his expression, interest maybe, or recognition. "You're remarkably cynical for someone who just accidentally baptized Ms. Holbrook in vintage champagne." I'm remarkably realistic, Bianca corrected. There's a difference. Is there? He leaned back, studying her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. Most people here tell me exactly what they think I want to hear. You just told me I'm performing. That's either very brave or very foolish. Can't it be both? This time his smile reached his eyes. I'm starting to think it can. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed. The orchestra shifted into something slower, more romantic. The host, some silver-haired society fixture whose name Bianca had already forgotten, stepped to the center of the floor with a microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our beloved tradition, the Vance Selection Waltz. Applause rippled through the crowd. 50 socialites rose as one, smoothing their gowns, checking their lipstick, positioning themselves like chess pieces preparing for war. Bianca started to stand. That's my cue to disappear. Leonardo's hand caught her wrist, gentle but firm. Don't even think about it. I don't dance with billionaires, she hissed, panic rising. I trip over them. Literally, you saw what happened with the champagne. Then we'll trip together. He stood, pulling her to her feet. Dance with me, Miss Daniels. The room went silent. Every camera phone in the ballroom swiveled toward them. 50 gorgeous faces registered varying degrees of shock, fury, and disbelief. This is insane, Bianca whispered. Probably. He guided her toward the center of the floor, one hand settling at her waist, the other taking hers. But I stopped caring about sanity around the time you dumped champagne on the most insufferable woman I know. The orchestra began. They moved. At first, Bianca was mechanical, terrified, her body rigid with awareness of every eye on them. But Leonardo was patient, murmuring quiet instructions. Left foot, right foot, don't think about the cameras, just look at me. And gradually, impossibly, she started to relax. Why are you doing this? She asked as they turned. Would you believe me if I said I don't know? No. Smart woman. He spun her gently and she laughed. Actually laughed, the sound escaping before she could stop it. It was that laugh, unpolished, real, utterly unfiltered, that broke through the ballroom's crystal perfection like sunlight through glass. Cameras flashed, social media exploded. The city's elite watched in fascinated horror as their most eligible bachelor waltzed with the waitress who'd spilled champagne an hour earlier. And in the corner of the ballroom, Vivienne Ward, statuesque, furious, and perfectly calculating, watched with narrowed eyes and began texting someone with very deliberate precision. The real games, she decided, were just beginning. The waltz ended to scattered, uncertain applause. Leonardo released Bianca's hand slowly, his expression unreadable as the crowd processed what they'd just witnessed. Phones were still recording. Gossip columns were already writing themselves. Bianca started to retreat toward the service entrance, but a voice cut through the murmurs like a blade through silk. Leonardo, darling. Vivienne Ward materialized from the crowd, 6 feet of calculated confidence in a crimson gown that probably cost more than Bianca's college tuition. She was everything Bianca wasn't. Polished, connected, born into the world Leonardo inhabited. Surely you're not serious about her? Vivienne's gaze swept over Bianca with surgical precision, cataloging every flaw. Leonardo's expression cooled. Why not? She's staff, darling. Vivienne's smile was all teeth. Your shareholders won't find this romantic. They'll find it reckless. A liability. Your board is watching, and this little performance... Good, Leonardo interrupted quietly, eyes never leaving Bianca's. I was getting bored of playing it safe for people who mistake caution for wisdom. Vivienne's perfect composure cracked for just a second. But before she could respond, chaos erupted from the ballroom entrance. Bianca! The voice was slurred, angry, and horrifyingly familiar. Trent stumbled through the crowd, her ex-boyfriend, still wearing his waiter's uniform, clearly drunk, his face flushed with humiliation and rage. Other staff members tried to stop him, but he shoved past them with the recklessness of someone who'd finally stopped caring about consequences. "So this is your dream now?" he shouted, weaving toward her. "Spill champagne on some rich guy and suddenly you're Cinderella? Trading aprons for Armani?" The entire ballroom held its breath. Cameras swiveled. This was better than any scripted drama. Bianca wanted the earth to swallow her whole. "Trent, go back inside," she whispered, mortified. "You're drunk. You're going to get fired." "Fired?" He laughed bitterly. "You just humiliated yourself in front of the entire city, and he's parading you around like some kind of charity case." Leonardo stepped forward, not aggressive, just present, placing himself calmly between Trent and Bianca. His voice was quiet, controlled, but carried absolute authority. "Cinderella," he said thoughtfully, as if considering the comparison. "Interesting choice?" He fixed Trent with a look that could freeze champagne. Except in this version, the prince isn't looking for the glass slipper. He's looking for the woman who walked away barefoot, because she doesn't need proof she belongs. The crowd murmured, half in awe, half in disbelief. Trent gaped, his drunken momentum collapsing. Bianca's chest tightened with something she couldn't name. Before anyone could respond, the ballroom lights flickered. Once, twice, then the massive LED screens mounted on the walls, meant for displaying charity donation totals, suddenly flashed to life with breaking news footage. "Breaking! Vance Charity Embezzlement Scandal!" The room erupted. Gasps, shouts. The footage showed federal agents outside the building, reporters swarming the entrance. The news anchor's voice cut through the chaos. Allegations that charity funds were redirected through shell companies. Sources close to the investigation name prominent donors, including Richard Ward, CEO of Ward Industries, who claims Leonardo Vance personally approved. Vivienne's face went white. Her father. The scandal was tied to her father, who was now publicly blaming Leonardo. Chaos exploded. Paparazzi crashed through the main entrance. Camera flashes erupted like lightning. Guests scattered, shouting into phones, fleeing toward exits. Security tried to maintain order but was quickly overwhelmed. Through it all, Leonardo remained perfectly still, watching his world tilt on its axis with the same composed expression he'd worn all evening. Only Bianca, standing close enough to see, noticed the slight tightening of his jaw, the controlled breath he took. Everyone else was running. Socialites grabbed their clutches and bolted. Board members huddled in panicked circles. Vivienne herself disappeared into the crowd, phone pressed to her ear. But Bianca stayed. She didn't think about it, didn't calculate the risk. She just stepped closer, positioning herself between Leonardo and the surge of reporters pushing through security, her small frame a ridiculous shield against the chaos. "Why aren't you running?" Leonardo asked quietly, his voice barely audible above the sirens wailing outside. She looked up at him. "Why aren't you panicking?" Something flickered in his expression, surprise maybe, or recognition. "Because the only person here who hasn't lied to me tonight just dumped champagne on someone's dress." Despite everything, the scandal, the cameras, the world crashing down around them, Bianca almost smiled. The music had stopped. The ballroom was emptying in waves of silk and panic. Security was escorting Vivienne and several board members out through side exits, and in the center of it all, as crystal chandeliers swayed overhead and camera flashes lit the darkness like dying stars, the Billionaire and the Waitress stood facing each other in the wreckage of the night. Alone, finally, in a room designed for hundreds. The Aurelius Grand Hotel ballroom looked like the aftermath of a beautiful war. Overturned champagne flutes caught the first rays of dawn filtering through the glass dome. Abandoned clutches and scattered roses littered the marble floor. The orchestra's chairs sat empty, music stands knocked askew. Somewhere in the distance, sirens still wailed, and the low murmur of reporters camped outside the hotel entrance drifted through the walls like ghosts of the evening's chaos. Leonardo stood alone by the balcony, tie loosened, jacket discarded somewhere hours ago, watching the city wake up below him. His empire was teetering. His board would demand answers. Federal investigators would come knocking. Vivian's father had thrown him under the bus to save himself, and half the city's elite now questioned whether the golden boy billionaire was corrupt or just catastrophically naive. And yet, all he could think about was her. Footsteps echoed across the empty ballroom, soft, hesitant. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. "You're still here," Leonardo said quietly. Bianca stopped a few feet away, still in her waitress uniform, looking exhausted and uncertain, and somehow more real than anything else in his carefully constructed world. "Security's still clearing reporters from the main entrance." I got stuck. Lucky me. She moved closer, wrapping her arms around herself against the morning chill seeping through the massive windows. "Shouldn't you be with your lawyers? Your board? Doing billionaire crisis management?" "Probably." He finally turned to face her. "But I can't stop thinking about something." "The embezzlement scandal that just torpedoed your reputation?" "You." The word hung between them like a confession. "I can't stop thinking about you." Bianca's breath caught. "Leonardo. The way you stood there when everyone else ran," he continued, stepping closer. "The way you laughed during the waltz like you'd forgotten the world was watching. The way you looked at me. Not like I'm Leonardo Vance, billionaire philanthropist, but like I'm just someone who said something that amused you." "You're not thinking straight," she said, but her voice wavered. "It's been a long night. You're in crisis mode. I'm a waitress who spilled champagne and accidentally became part of your disaster." "You're honest," he corrected. "Everyone else here wore masks. Performed. Calculated their angles. You tripped over a champagne bucket and then argued with me over wine. Do you have any idea how rare that is in my world? Clumsiness? Truth." He was close enough now that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Real, unfiltered truth. Not strategy, not networking, just you. She shook her head, taking a step back even as something in her chest pulled tight. "This isn't a fairy tale, Leonardo. You're a billionaire whose face is on magazine covers. I serve drinks to people who don't remember my name. Tomorrow you'll wake up and realize this was just adrenaline and scandal and what if I don't?" His voice was quiet but steady. "What if tomorrow I still can't stop thinking about the woman who defended me from reporters when she had every reason to run? What if next week, next month, I still remember how you looked at me during that waltz?" "Then you're insane," she whispered. But she didn't move away when he stepped closer again. "Probably." His hand came up, fingertips barely brushing her jawline. "You'll regret this," she said, but it sounded more like a question than a statement. Leonardo's smile was soft, genuine, nothing like the polished mask he wore for cameras. "Then let me regret it properly." He kissed her, slow, deliberate, utterly certain. The sunrise broke through the glass dome above them, painting the empty ballroom in shades of gold and rose. Champagne glasses sparkled like scattered stars across the marble floor. The city stretched out beyond the windows, waking up to headlines and scandals and speculation. And in the center of it all, the billionaire who'd spent his entire life performing for audiences finally stopped calculating and just felt. When they finally broke apart, Bianca's eyes were wide, her breathing unsteady. "This is insane." "Completely," Leonardo agreed, still holding her close. "The press is going to have a field day." "Let them. Your board will lose their minds." "They already have." His forehead rested against hers. "Might as well give them something worth losing their minds over." She laughed. That same unfiltered, genuine laugh that had broken through the ballroom's perfection hours earlier. You're really doing this? The Billionaire and the Waitress? That's your play? I'm done playing, he said simply. This is the first real thing I've felt in years. 3 weeks later. The press conference room was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. Reporters filled every seat. Social media was already exploding with speculation. Leonardo sat at the center table, composed as ever in a charcoal suit. Beside him, Bianca wore a simple white dress and the kind of calm confidence that came from surviving chaos and choosing to stay anyway. The moderator opened the floor for questions. Hands shot up immediately. Mr. Vance, is it true you're engaged? Leonardo glanced at Bianca, then held up her left hand, where a simple diamond caught the light. Yes. The room erupted. Flashes exploded. Reporters shouted over each other. To your former waitress. To Bianca Daniels, he corrected firmly. Who happens to be brilliant, honest, and the only person who's ever told me I was full of it to my face. Bianca bit back a smile. A reporter in the front row leaned forward eagerly. Miss Daniels, any regrets? She pretended to consider it, then looked at Leonardo with mock seriousness. Just one, actually. He tensed slightly. What's that? I should have spilled the champagne on you first, she said. Would have saved us both a lot of time. The room exploded with laughter. Leonardo's professional composure cracked, and he laughed. Really laughed, the kind of laugh no one in that room had ever heard from him before. Cameras captured it all. The headlines wrote themselves. The internet melted down with equal parts outrage and adoration. And Leonardo Vance, who'd spent 32 years surrounded by perfection, polish, and performance, realized something fundamental. He'd built empires, closed billion-dollar deals, commanded rooms full of the world's most powerful people. But only one woman had ever made him imperfect, and that's when he finally felt human.
Thank you for watching Life in Stories. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you smile, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more unforgettable tales. Share where you're watching from. Our community spans the world, and your support keeps these stories alive. See you in the next one.